Hello and welcome to Life Matters, the program where we engage life issues with critical thinking and a biblical worldview. I'm Toni Clarke, Executive Director of Assure Women's Center. Today I have the special privilege of being joined by two of the women who were here at the very beginning of Assure's journey, Barb Malek and Chris Schlesiger. Barb and Chris are here to share some of the stories of how Assure began, what led to its foundation, and they will take us from small beginnings to becoming a leading voice for the preborn and their mothers today. Barb and Chris, thank you for joining me.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
So let's start by introducing you both. Can you share a little bit about your personal backgrounds and how you became involved with the Assure Women's Center?
Well, I distinctly remember that I came to a special meeting at church, and Denny and Claire Hartford with Vital Signs Ministries were there, and they were talking about abortion. And I don't know where I had been the last few years, but this was in 1984, and I was pregnant with my third child, and I was just shocked at what I heard. And then Denny brought up that he wanted to start a center to bring women to, when they were talking to them in front of the abortion clinic, that we could really help them. And it just gripped my heart.
Well, good. What about you, Chris?
Well, I was raised in the church. I remember when Roe versus Wade came down. I was 11 years old, and I went to do a science project. We had to do a science project, and I wanted to do it on abortion. And even back then, I was censored, and I couldn't talk about abortion. But I did it on fetal development, and got my message in anyway. So I guess I've always kind of been that little. I'm going to push the edge a little. Fast forward 1980, I went to my first pro-life meetings. They were opening an abortion clinic just a few blocks from my house. And so I went to that meeting, and we began, as Barb said, we went out to the abortion clinic and began offering help to women as they were going in. And met Denny and Claire Hartford. And again, Denny shared his vision of opening a Christ-centered pregnancy center in Omaha. I was involved with another pregnancy center at that time. And so I stepped away from that. We were having success talking to the women, getting them to leave the abortion clinic, but we knew that wasn't ideal. So we kept talking about wanting a place of safety. So that's really where, at that time, it was AAA Center for Pregnancy Counseling, so you could get that prime spot in the Yellow Pages. But that's how it started. It started in front of the abortion clinics, wanting a safe place for the women before they came to that.
Well, I'm glad you guys both said yes. Thank you. So, Barb, what was your first role when you started at Assure?
You know, that's all kind of muddled. I mean, there was just a group of us that, I think 4 or 5 of us, actually, mostly Chris and I, that were there, and we just did everything. So I don't know that we officially, in those early days, ever said, you're the director or you're this. We just did what needed to be done. And I remember Chris and I were out with our daughters in strollers looking for the first building. And that image will always stick with me. And we just did what needed to be done.
Yeah, gotcha. So how has it evolved over the years?
Oh, my goodness. It does not look anything the same as what it did. We were stumbling and bumbling around, had no idea what we were doing. Pregnancy tests were totally different. And we thought, well, let's show them videos. Well,
wait a minute.
Pro-life videos.
It was the slideshow. Oh, that's the carousel of slides that were on top of the TV that would drop down and show the prenatal pictures.
Just women. Y'all are really dating yourself. I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, face it.
Goes without saying. Goes without saying. But it's so different now.
Well, back then it was boomers ministering to boomers. We felt the Lord was asking us to rescue, and so we said, okay. I think if we'd have known what was ahead of us, we probably would have ran screaming in the opposite direction. But God in his wisdom just says, will you say yes? And we say yes. And but we were having success with that. What changed it was then the Gen X's started coming on. Gen X was similar enough to boomers, but by the time the millennials started coming, we were missing the mark completely. I mean, as Barb said, we were just trying to do our best. God said, will you? We said yes. pregnancy centers were pretty much in their infancy in the early 80s. And so we really didn't have, like we have national organizations now. You can, there's a community, and we really didn't have that. But we were having success because, well, if I was in that situation, if I was there, this is what I would want. And when those millennials started coming, those early millennials, we were missing them completely.
No.
Our center had become known as that place of really nice people that you'd go to. If you were facing an unplanned pregnancy, they'll help you with parenting classes and diapers and wipes and cribs. They're just great people, parenting classes. But if you thought abortion was an option, we were not relevant.
Gotcha.
And so that's where we had to really work to become different and become relevant to meet the need.
Good, good. So we kind of talked about the founding of Assure Women's Center and just realizing that we needed a place to bring those girls that you guys were seeing coming out of the abortion clinics. But what were some of the challenges that you faced in those first few years?
Well, money.
Finances.
I mean, I remember every board meeting that we would go to, we had just enough money to keep the doors open.
Mm-hmm.
There were times it was less than $10.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, having that and then finding volunteers to help us, everything was just brand new.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure anybody that started a business or has started a nonprofit can understand the challenges that went with that. Plus educating the public on abortion and why this needed to be in existence anyway.
Actually changing a mindset, because Christians, I think a large part were rather arrogant and like, well, how could anybody do that?
Right.
So just educating them on the pressures that the women were feeling and that no women really wanted to do this.
Yeah.
They just didn't. And so trying to turn that heart that these women needed rescuing just as their children did.
I think that's still in play today, that we still need to educate even believers that maybe you wouldn't consider it, but we don't know what those girls are experiencing that would make them think that this is my only choice.
Right.
So unfortunately, that is sometimes how we think. And once again, thank you guys for even starting that way back when. So
Way back up.
oh, okay. Over the years, you've both interacted with countless women and families. Are there any stories that stand out to you, stories that still resonate deeply today?
That's a wormhole we could go into, because there's so many I think through. I guess probably one of the most dramatic that the Lord allowed me to be a part of was I was sidewalk counseling. Back Barb was there. A lot of my still current friends were there, and I met a woman as she was going in, and she allowed me to talk with her, and she actually got in my car and left with me and brought her to the center. She made a life choice and she had her child. It ended up being the only child she was ever able to have. And when she had her little girl, she named her after me. So that's kind of sweet. And today, this young woman is married. She's gone on the mission field and she now has 2 children. So oftentimes we talk about rescuing the children. But really generations, the ripples that actually come from that.
And we had a chance to meet her a few years ago at the banquet.
Yeah.
It's really sweet.
Yeah.
What about you, Barb?
I thought a lot about this, and I think to me, it's not so much one woman as it is women who come into the center and they've believed in the Lord their whole lives. They go to good churches, but now they think they've got to abort their baby. And it used to be, it's kind of taken an evolution. It used to be that there was shame there. There was embarrassment to go back to the church and be pregnant. So they rationalized it that way. But I think right now, even women in the church have believed the lie that society has taught that you should never be inconvenienced by a pregnancy. It should always be just the right time to have a baby, or you should get rid of it. And I had one last week that was like that. That she was a believer all her life, cried all the way through the ultrasound, but still, I don't know if she will, but
She's coming back.
yes,
Coming back.
yes. And we're going to pray for her and believe for the best. But I've seen so many of those.
Wow. So how have those women and the families that you've served at Assure impacted you personally?
In a million ways. when I was first saved, Denny Hartford, I remember saying to me, God is a debtor to no man. And I really didn't understand at the time, but fast forward 40 plus years. And I very early on began to see that, because you think I'm going to give to the Lord. I'm going to say yes to the Lord. I'm going to serve here. You can't outserve him, because as you give, he gives. It's not that life has just been this sunshine and roses and, we haven't had any hills. No, actually, life has come at us pretty hard and had a lot of difficult times. But because of being faithful to the Lord, he just continues, and when I am broken and I sit in front of a broken woman to try to lead her to the Lord, that actually strengthens me. So it is, as I've seen the Lord be faithful to Assure, I was a brand new believer and watched Barb and Claire Hartford sign a lease for $300 a month. And we only had like $300 in the bank. And I remember that moment thinking to myself, this is what faith looks like. So just as you've just, walked with the Lord. So that's probably the greatest impact. It is just growing, seeing the Lord in everything.
And I tell people all the time that the center shaped my life.
Yes.
It really has. We talk so much today. People talk so much about having to minister to yourself and take care of yourself. And I think that the word clearly says, and I've experienced in my life, the more you give your life away,
the more you receive,
the more it is going to just, and that's pretty much what you were just saying too, Chris, that the more you give your life away, the more he meets your needs and helps you to grow, and you get outside yourself. I honestly fall in love with every girl I take.
Yeah, you do.
And no matter what her circumstances are, and you start to see that people live in circumstances that you would never dream exist. And it's so good to have the Lord open up your heart to them.
Yeah. So, Barb, you retired in 2023, but now you serve as a volunteer. You kind of mentioned that a bit. Do you see things differently compared to when you were a staff? Remember, I'm sitting next to you.
Yeah. I think I'm a better advocate because of my years of experience here. Right now, I guess I feel free from the other responsibilities that I had, and I can just be an advocate. And that's very freeing.
Good. So, how has Assure Women's Center evolved since its founding?
Well, you kind of heard how we were kind of muddling through. Barb tells a story of a very first patient that we took. We weren't even officially open. The girl just walked through the door, and Barb was like painting at the time. So she put everything down, and she's walking over boxes and actually saw her. It's different now. As I said, we had to respond. We were pretty successful, boomer to boomer, Gen X to boomer, but we kept trying to minister to these girls being brought up in the information age, just saying, "Oh, we care about you. Here's prenatal pictures," and it wasn't resonating with them. So in early 2000, we went through a 40-day fast because we thought, Lord, how do we reach out, draw in, and most effectively reach to those most at risk for abortion? And he showed us a linear process right after that fast. And that linear process is we do everything the same and we're able to measure. And we went from hardly any of our girls considering abortion to just last year, over 70% of our patients who came to us were at high risk or most at risk for abortion. 76% of our women making life choices. So we're, impacting, drawing those most at risk in. So it's just changed. We're much more, we talk about millennials and Gen Zs needing a controlled professional environment. So we know there's no muddling anymore. It is a controlled professional environment. We're trying to innovate constantly with Gen Alpha knocking on the door. God help us all.
Yeah.
We're going to have to continue to innovate. And respond.
Good. So I'd like to pause here to briefly catch anyone up who may be joining us. Life Matters is a program where we engage life issues with critical thinking and a biblical worldview, and it's the ministry of Assure Women's Center. I'm Toni Clarke, Executive Director of Assure, and Assure Women's Center is a nationally recognized pro-life pregnancy center based in Omaha, Nebraska. You can engage directly with Life Matters on social media. Find us on social media at First Step to Life Omaha. There you can let us know your thoughts on an episode, ask questions, and most importantly, you can help us to get the word out about Life Matters by sharing our episodes with the people you connect with. Today, I have the special privilege of being joined by two of the women who were at the beginning of Assure's journey, Barb, Malek, and Chris Schlesiger. Barb and Chris are here to share some of the stories of how Assure began, what led to its foundation, and take us from the small beginnings to becoming a leading voice for the preborn and their mothers today. Barb and Chris, thanks again for joining us today.
And our pleasure.
Absolutely.
It's fun to sit with you guys. You've been part of my leadership team for some time, and I would say as a new executive director in the pro-life movement, I felt like I was really supported by both of you because you had the foundation that I needed that I didn't necessarily have. And so you guys have certainly encouraged me in my years of executive director. So I learned a lot from you guys. You probably don't know that, but I watched you silently. So I'm just saying.
Scary.
So what do you both hope to see for Assure Women's Center in the next 5 to 10 years?
I would say, I'm sure unchanging would be our commitment to Christ. That was what we, and our commitment to rescuing women and children from abortion. I hope that doesn't change. But I would like to say that we would continue to innovate to rescue because it gets harder and harder. And sometimes the tendency is to like, well, we'll just, we're comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
We're fine. We're good. And then people are dying all around us, literally. And so I would hope that we would stay committed to the innovation of the very fast-paced, ever-changing culture around us.
Yeah, I don't know how you can avoid that. We're not going to. I think everything needs to change in order to meet the new needs. And that's the beauty of the linear process that we have is that you can evaluate everything
Weekly.
and it's got to be evaluated. You've got to keep an eye on it because if it's not working any longer, then it needs to be changed. And that's what you guys do so beautifully.
Yeah.
Staff.
I'm grateful that you guys were around when we started the linear process, and you've been able to continue to watch it grow and change, and even train other centers. And so I think to me, that's a part of your legacy, that you guys were a part of that, getting Assure to where it is today. And I hope you never forget that.
It's nothing but fun. To me, it's like, this is what God has allowed me to be a part of.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Feel blessed to be a part of Assure.
absolutely.
So looking at the pro-life movement as a whole, where do you see it heading? And what role can organizations like Assure play in shaping the future?
I was telling somebody the other day that really pregnancy centers in some states is all they've got. Because the law has clamped down so much on the state being able to protect unborn life, that really pregnancy centers are the last stand. They're really the only area, and states are trying to clamp down on them too. So people really need to pray that pregnancy centers will not be shut down, will not be so censored that they won't be able to do the work that they need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. There are states where governors and attorney generals have, stood up publicly on the news and declared they're going to shut down every pregnancy center. Yeah. So I think one thing you're going to have to see pregnancy centers do is get more controlled professional. Like this whole idea of opening up and just muddling through, you'll be shut down in a heartbeat. Yeah. It's going to have to be, you are under a microscope. We serve an excellent God, so we should always be striving to be excellent. So I think you're going to see more and more of very professional looking pregnancy centers.
Good. So on a personal level, what's next for each of you?
Well, there's the $1 million question, right?
Yeah. No announcements today.
No announcements. I just very recently, I've begun a prayer. Lord, with the time I have left, what do you want for me? What do you want from me? And so just continuing to seek the Lord. And I think every believer answers that way, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm retired, but what is that? Really, because I don't believe that if you're walking with the Lord, you're ever retired.
Yeah, your work is not done.
You just move to the next phase.
Yeah. Right.
And so I'm still asking the Lord to show me, what do you want me to do, Lord? Because I believe we need to stay active for him until run our race well until the end comes. And part of that has been staying with Assure. I've got some other things, but I think most of them are life-based because that is what he has educated me in these last few years, and I want to use that.
So what are some of those things you're doing?
Well, I've talked to Spiravita about helping her.
Okay, good.
And working with centers.
Okay.
And she's maybe going to have me do some phone calls with them and
That's good.
give them their statistics and answer any questions since I know so much about the process. And, maybe be an advocate an extra day here.
Okay, good.
Are
you still writing?
Right now, no, I'm not.
Okay.
That phased out,
Okay.
but I'm looking for new opportunities.
Gotcha. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good.
As the Lord leads.
Absolutely. We are not done. I heard someone say that the word retirement is not in the Bible.
No, it is not.
No,
Yeah.
if you're serving him, you just serve him in a new way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what are the best ways for people to get involved with a Sure Women Center today?
We need volunteers. I think if you would ask any staff member at any pregnancy center across the country, that's what they would say. We saw over 1,600 pregnancy test patients last year. Most of those were seen by volunteer. And without the volunteers, we wouldn't be able to see those numbers. So obviously that way. And there are people, oh, that sounds scary. We invite people to come and just shadow, come for a couple of hours and just shadow. And then you'll see how unintimidating it is because of linear process. We don't want you to try to come up with anything. We have our parenting classes as well, Bible studies, mentoring, one-on-one, all kinds of opportunities to serve. And then, of course, it always comes down to, financial. You need, obviously, those, and just maybe talking to us or talking to your church about Assure, trying to get Assure into your churches and Bible studies and just raising awareness.
True. I tell people, if you want an opportunity to really make a difference in the life of a woman that's in need and to be able to share your faith with her, there is no better volunteer opportunity than to be an advocate at Assure.
I agree. Yeah. Good. So what's one word or phrase you would use to describe your time with the Sure Women Center and why?
Blessed, full, rich.
That's 3.
I know.
I'm messing with you.
You know me.
I would say life transforming.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Everything. It's been everything.
Mm-hmm. The Lord is here. He's so powerfully here. And it is so humbling to be able to, say, Lord, please use me. And then when you say yes, and then he lets you be a part of something so exceptional. Through the years, tens of thousands of lives have been rescued from abortion. Wow. That's fun.
Yeah. Oh. All right. Is there a particular Bible verse or piece of wisdom that has guided you throughout your work at Assure?
My life verse is Psalm 25, 4 and 5. Show me your ways, O Lord. Teach me your path. Guide me in your truth and teach me, for you are God, my Savior. My hope is in you every day. And I pray that every day. And I think if you're, looking to do anything in life, is just ask the Lord to show you. And that's what he's done.
Okay.
Gosh. Did you give me that question ahead of time? I would count the verse. I would just say at different stages, I just have been taught new levels of faith.
Yes.
And at this point in my life, I believe God can do anything. And that if you just ask, he will give it to you.
And wait.
Yes. Sometimes you have to wait. But he does hear us. He hears our prayers and he answers. And there's never been a time where he has not provided what we've needed.
It sometimes looked different than what we thought we needed.
That's right. True.
Retrospective.
True.
It's perfect.
True.
So reflecting on your past, what advice would you give to someone considering starting a similar center today?
I think similar to what I said. Proverbs 16:3 says, commit your works to the Lord and he'll establish your thoughts. Mm-hmm. So if you believe the Lord is pressing on you, then press into him. Also, we have there's all kinds of centers or organizations that can help you. I would say reach out to Spiravita.
I was just going to say that.
They have a patient process.
Spiravita.
Don't try to reinvent the wheel. They have this effective patient process to rescue.
Yes. That's what I would say.
Okay, good.
Call them.
Yeah, good. And as you said, there are other organizations, national organizations that will help people get started with pregnancy centers as well. So
Yeah.
good. All right. How has technology changed the way Assure connects with women in need?
Well, if you have a millennial or Gen Z in your life, do they want to call? Do they want to talk to you on the phone? Nope. So texting, electronic, online scheduling, just don't insist that they respond to you the way you want.
Yeah.
So we have electronic intakes now.
Yeah, you've got to be there.
Yeah.
You've got to be. And I think even advertising, you're not going to reach those women.
We're trying to read yellow pages anymore.
No. No. So yeah, you got to be up on the latest technology.
Social media out there.
Yeah.
And we have to meet them right where they are.
Right.
On their phones, in their hands. And they're not, like you said, they're not pulling out phone books. They're pulling out that phone.
And on the various platforms that they're on.
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay, so if you could go back to 1986 and tell yourselves one thing about the journey ahead, what would it be?
Just one step at a time, and know that the Lord is there. That, just wait for me, says the Lord. You've committed it, and just trust him. Just trust him.
Don't be anxious for tomorrow.
No, because if you're anxious for tomorrow, if you're worried about tomorrow, you're going to burn out. If you know that the Lord has called you, he's going to provide. But if you feel like I have to do this, and that's why I think wait for the Lord. And I think as we get older, we realize the value in that, because so many times when we're young, we say we're waiting, but we're actually working, kind of manipulating in the background, trying to make it happen. Don't, because then you start owning it, and then you're going to burn out. It's the Lord's.
So I just want to thank you again for joining us on Life Matters this week. I'm Toni Clarke. Life Matters is an educational outreach resource of Assure Women's Center in Omaha, Nebraska. Assure is helping women with unplanned pregnancies take the first step to life. To learn more about the ministry of Assure, visit firststeptolife.com. That's firststeptolife.com. There you can learn about the many services we provide, including how we come alongside abortion-minded mothers and empower women to choose life for her and her baby, as well as find our most current broadcasts and all of our past episodes. You can also find information on our website about how you can partner with us in our life-saving work of Assure. Through your generous support, we can continue to save babies in Nebraska while advancing the cause of life around the world. Thanks for listening to Life Matters. Join us again next week at the same time right here on BOT Radio Network.